All right. Hi there, everyone. Dr. Vernita Glenn White here, brilliant solutionist and executive coachsultant to the highly ambitious and the elite. I help individuals like you create dynamic, custom life plans that will take your possibilities to realities to help you go from great to phenomenal and to get you from unstuck to unstoppable. And a lot of times I think we get unstuck, but then it's like, I'm unstuck, now what? And that's where I come in. So this may be a different approach or setup for some of you. I'm not glammed out, but I think I've been on here a few times where I'm not fully, glammed up just here. So this is like real talk with Dr. V. I may save this for the podcast that's coming up at some point, always repurpose your content. So I'm on here, I have an idea, but I realize like when things are coming up, channel my energy to somewhere productive. And I have to, get my book in here. I have, over the last few days, I've had some interesting conversations with people, and I did a live stream on one, and to get that out. But then I was like, I don't want to say waste a live stream, but it's like let's save this so we can keep the audio in case we want to use it somewhere else. So I am going to talk about that situation again. And then I'm going to talk about a situation that just happened not too long ago. Now, I don't know when you are going to watch this or hear this, but let's say it is September of 2022. I mean, that is, but I'm not going to give an actual date in case some parties are listening. So this is what I want to say. I didn't know this, and you've heard my story probably on here, where I didn't really set out to be like a mindset coach or transformational coach or life coach or anything like that. If you've listened to any of my videos, I struggle with coming up with a moniker right now. Right now, I'm settled on the Brilliant Solutionist because I help people find their solutions to their problems, and executive coachsultant, where executive, I like that's more high level, and then coachsultant, there are times when I do tell clients what to do, and then there are times when I guide them so they get the balance of both, or the mixture of both. But before all of that, it was really more about me doing my own self-work on myself, rediscovering my voice. That's where all of this started, rediscovering my voice, and where more direction. I already had a PhD. I was already working as a college professor. And I know to someone on the outside, it was like, well, what else is there? I mean, the next step, obviously, you get married, have some kids, right? But then I started working with other women and some men who had families, spouses and kids, and they were doing great in their careers. And it was still like, well, what is it? And then for me, I realized that a lot of it has gone to rediscovering and uncovering my voice again. And so with that, brought me into the world of personal growth, personal development, more so for myself. Like, I know about professional development for my career. I know about, limiting beliefs and things like that as it related to academia. A lot of my background indirectly deals with psychology and human behavior, which I'm like, well, duh, this seemed like a logical, progression, but I didn't know that, right? So anyway, I set off that to say that I became fascinated with self-awareness and working on myself and realizing like, okay, why did this happen? Let me think about that. Where did this thought come from? And how can I improve? Or how am I looking at other people in their situations? And how do I show up? And a lot of that goes on. And I think that's great. But then there are some times when it's like, it is too much. It is too much. And let me give you, like, I know I've read some articles where people were like, working on themselves, having personal development is just, I'm developed. I don't want to work on myself anymore. And I think part of that is fair, but I think the other part is making sure you're not in those same situations, or you're not, me personally, not in those same situations, not in that environment to where you're constantly working on the same thing. So sometimes I can tell when it's like, okay, I don't want to keep working on this. And then it's like, it's not really me, it's me responding to the environment. So let me shift, whether that's a friend circle, a physical space, I don't say a workspace because I work for myself now, but even at that, or working in collaborations, it's like, okay, I need to shift from that. And that way I can go to another level. So I think sometimes when people hear personal development or self-growth, it's like you're going to arrive somewhere, but that's not it. A lot of my references are education, so stick with me. It's like, I used to teach mathematics. So technically, math is just adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. That's it. But there are different levels of that as you go out through school, different levels as you go through primary, secondary, college, and then if you even go somewhere post-secondary, there are different levels of mathematics, but it's all at that core of adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing. I believe personal development and self-growth, and now I like to say self-expansion and self-leadership, leading yourself and expanding yourself. Those are different levels, like, how you were in a situation 2 years ago, or depending on how quickly you grow, 2 months ago, you're not the same person. All right. All that being said is now I'm realizing like my ear is more attuned to certain things, and I'm better when I give examples. So the first situation that happened was, I think a week ago from this date that I'm filming this, and I was having some discussions with someone who's in a circle of mine doing similar work, and we decided like, hey, let's do some sort of collaboration, like an indirect collaboration. And they were like, you've helped me in this particular area. I think it's great. I think more people need you in this space. And me, like, not even thinking about like something that's easy for me, I don't want to say I avoided it, but I didn't so much advertise it. So it's like when I kept getting people asking me questions about it, I will put a package together and I'm like, okay, we can do this, but it's not something I actually promoted, because I was like, look, I want to focus on this part. And then this is where I'm learning, like, just go where in a sense, go where the money flows, because that's the purpose of business, is to meet a demand, right? Or to be a solution to a problem. So I was like, okay, yes, that sounds good. Let me not fight it, learn how to just go with the flow. And I teach about or talk about embracing your brilliance and expand your life. So I need to take my own advice. Obviously, I'm good at this particular things, not the best, but better than some, and that's all people need at times. And let's go with it. So I was like, okay, I cannot focus just on the high-end package part, which I learned to embrace and be okay with being a higher level Coachsultant. One, and some people may take offense to that, but one, because of the letters behind my name and in front of my name. And I'm realizing that a lot of times I bring that experience, even though everyone's not asking like, well, help me get a PhD, but a certain skill sets that I bring along with that on top of what I'm coaching and consulting on. And then two, it's like, well, if I've helped enough people or a certain caliber of people and they got results, you doggone right I can stand behind this price tag, because really what prices are is, hold on, my grandmother's calling me. All right, I'm back. I was like, answer grandma. So all that said, I forgot where I left off. I think it's something to do with pricing and things like that. All of this is building. Stay with me. So it's like a part of me, I've worked on myself. I have an actual money mindset coach that I work with on a consistent basis, because it wasn't so much about me getting myself together or understanding how I tick and how I move and how I show up, but being in this entrepreneurial space, I didn't want to just be a regular entrepreneur, with the ups and downs and all of that. I wanted to, like, how can I get to this level sooner, quicker, faster? So I have a coach. Oh, that's where I was going with, part of when you work with a coach or even a consultant is how do we bridge this gap, this knowledge gap sooner, quicker, faster? Because it's not anything that's so secretive that I know. Is you don't want to take the time to research, put it together, learn it. You want me to say, here it is, and then guide you through the process and be able to answer your questions when you get stuck. All right. So with that being said, so in this particular instance, it was like, all right, I can do this and start talking about like a smaller version of the package. And when you do something smaller, it's a high level overview, almost like a sample of what people will experience. When they work with you, they will still get results, but nothing beats a deep dive, one-on-one, or really intense small group over a period of time or over the period of the project, right? And so I'm like, okay, we worked on this. They helped me with some languaging parts. And here's the thing. Sometimes when you don't trust yourself, you lean on what others say or do in a particular area where, one, you don't think that's like a gift of yours, and two, you don't feel as certain in that area. And I'm trying not to jump around, but okay, I'll just go for it. So I was like, oh yeah, you're right. I see what you're saying. Now I did the main project like months and months ago, and it was up on my website, and I kind of left it there. It didn't do all, I didn't touch it, right? But then as I'm talking to this person, we only got to part of what I was talking about. And I was like, yeah, I can see that. I can change that. No problem. Yeah, I see where you're going. Because I have a lot of knowledge, but I also recognize if someone's going to share their time with me and share their knowledge, I'm be receptive of that, right? I'm not a know-it-all. But I know what I know. And I hope you know what you know as well. But even if some things didn't make sense, I was like, okay, yeah. And not in a condescending way, like, yeah, okay, yeah, I hear you, but just really being open. And then I've learned to sit with things, and if it's something that, okay, I can move forward with, okay. If not, I'll put that on the side, but thank you anyway. So that happens. I'm like, okay, great. So then we have another conversation, and they're like, well, I really want to promote it to like my people, and let me know, make sure you have everything together, make sure you have the outcomes together, make sure this, that, and the other. And I'm sitting here a little confused because I'm like, didn't we just spend a couple of hours talking about that? And not only did we spend hours talking about that, I helped you directly with a few things, and you got results in a short amount of time, like super, super short. So can you imagine? And you didn't even have to imagine. Like I laid out, like I don't want to say I fixed. I showed you one particular area and said, this is how the rest of this works. So it's not like you didn't have firsthand experience about what I can do. So I was like, okay. And I will admit, I was getting a little defensive because I thought we were talking about the smaller version. They kept talking about my bigger version. And it was like, well, what are the results? How do they know that the outcomes that they're going to get, this, that, and the other? And I was like, you've seen the outcomes. And even though I didn't, roll them out on my tongue at that moment, one, I wasn't ready to, and two, I was like, I mean, it's on paper. I know how to read on paper. I'm not making it up because that's what I do, but to actually verbalize, it's like not in the front of my mind right now. I said, but you saw it. And so we were kind of going back and forth, and all of a sudden I was like, let me just get quiet. And then I was like, what are you really asking me? Like, what do you not get? And they were like, I just want to make sure the person gets the outcomes, because if I was paying this particular price, I would want to know exactly what I get. And the price that they said was the price of the bigger package. And I was like, we're not even talking about that. But then me and my self-awareness and my radar for the money mindset, it went off. But instead of me sitting with that, I reacted in a way, and not like aggressive, but this is a part where learning how to work with your growth, your expansion. And I don't want to say should have. I'm recognizing the cues that I was receiving to pick up on when to shut my mouth and to listen, and then to listen to the words behind the words. And this can be challenging sometimes, because when you think people are on your same level or in your space, sometimes you are growing in a different area than they are. And you have to be able to recognize when you expanded in that area and they have not. Even though y'all may be on the same level here, there's just certain parts where you're up here a little bit, and then you have to be okay with that. And so I'm listening, and then when I finally got it, I was like, oh. And then I was more upset at myself, and this is where you do have to give yourself grace, because everything is a learning experience. And just because you, and maybe I'm talking to other coaches and consultants or leaders, just because you may teach a certain thing, lead a certain way, you're over certain things, you're a consultant, you've written a book on certain things, there are still moments when you're like, oh, I should have caught it. But give yourself grace and ease, and I would say celebrate the fact that you were able to go back and pinpoint. So that's why I'm celebrating myself. I was able to go back and pinpoint. But that thing bothered me for a couple of days, because it was more so when I recognized that it was a money issue. Just put it out there. It was a money issue, because what they were really doing, and this is why I was annoyed and a little pissed off, I'll say that, is because now you're questioning the price I put on what I offer. Now you're questioning, what I interpret this as is you're questioning my worth. And I'm not in the sense of nobody can pay you my worth, or I think, I may do another video on pricing and all of that, but you follow what I'm saying. So it's kind of like, now, especially for me, it's like, do you know the work and the mindset work that I had to get to this point? And, understanding what I can bring to the table and what I do for people, the results I actually do produce. And now you're questioning a price tag when you've spent well above what my services, and your stuff is still jacked up. And I realized that their prices for their services were nowhere near mine for the amount of time. And again, that's another mindset thing. It's like, whether I charge $10,000 for 2 hours or you charge $10,000 for 12 weeks, some people may say, oh my gosh, I'm gonna go with the person who's gonna give me more time. But if I can give you the results in 2 hours for $10,000 versus spending $10,000 in 12 weeks with someone, what makes the most sense? I mean, and that's something that you as an individual have to think about. But the people I roll with, it's all about speed and results. If you can get me that in 2 hours and I don't have to do this in 2 weeks, look, I got a whole master's degree in 9 months, because versus the 2 years some people were telling me that was going to take. I got a whole PhD in 3 years versus the 5 to 7 years that people were going to take. These are the things that I'm, working and realizing about myself. Like, whoa, you may not have been in this particular space, but you've been doing some things. This has been your thing for some years, some decades at this point, right? So just listening to that, it just put, I don't want to say a bad taste in my mouth, but it just opened my eyes to certain situations. And one for me is, and this is why I'm sharing this with you, recognizing your brilliance, embracing your brilliance, and owning your voice, and understanding that. And my mindset coach, she would be like, Frida, you know better. It's like, you don't really need to partner with anyone to get the results that you desire. And there was a moment in me, it was like, well, I'm not as certain in this area, and if this person can can open this door, then everything will work out. Now, I'm not saying don't ever collaborate with anyone. I'm saying when you decide to collaborate with anyone, they're not doing you a favor. It's mutual respect, and they see the value that you can offer. Maybe they want to open up the door for you a little wider and to support you, but know that you're worthy of that. And it can happen on its own, but it is nice when someone can be like, hey, I already got these 1,000 people for you to speak at versus you going to pitch to all of these places to get a gig. I already got one for you. But then it's like when you tell them your price and they're like, oh, well, I don't know. Even though they've heard you speak, they've seen you, but because that's not what they charge, then so just be careful. I hope that makes sense. I hope that lands for you. Be careful with that. And I wanted to share that example with you is just, again, sometimes when you think you're on the same level as someone and there's no judgment, just be careful and have your ears always on. And sometimes that's when the self-growth and the self-expansion process can be a little draining, for lack of a better word, is because you're always listening and you can pick up on certain things, but not to judge yourself because you think you've evolved, that if you had a little slip, don't be so hard on yourself. So that was that. My price is my price, and I still have to talk to this person. I'm getting this out now because I do have to interact with this person, I think tomorrow at the time of this recording. And I talked to my business bestie about it, and I was just, I talked to my sister about it. It got me into a mood because it was like I've worked hard to, it's still kind of bothering me, to get to a certain point. And then when the people that you think support you question something like that, question the results that you can bring, that's when it's like really, like, I don't mind if it's someone who's never experienced my work or anything like that, and they're like, oh my gosh, you charge too much. Okay, that's cool. I'm not for you. Keep it moving. But when someone who's experienced what you can do, and then they question it, like, well, how dare you charge more than me? Yeah, that one stung a little bit. So that was the first thing. Now, what happened today was also quite interesting. It was like, what is happening in this window? And now I'm looking over it, from a higher view, 30,000 foot view. I know that I'm in the process of working on a book proposal, and it's about this very same thing. So I don't know if you believe in God and Jesus, but I do. And I know that's a warfare thing. We can call it a stronghold. We can call it a mind block. We can call it an outdated belief, negative thinking, thoughts. But spiritually, I know what that is now. I didn't know in the moment. I'm just having these real life revelations with you. So the second thing that happened today, a few hours ago, actually, is I know someone, they are, starting, I guess, their consulting business. We were in a similar field for years together. I went to another level, like in higher education. When I say that, they stay more at like the K-12 level. We kept in contact for a few things, and I remember they reached out to me and was like, hey, I see what you're doing on social media and things like that. And it's interesting because that thing with this person asked me to do, and I'm like, okay, you know what? I need to go hard in this area. But anyway, what this person was saying, that what they admired about me was the same thing that I was from the first story. So these two are related, which I'm like, what in the world? So they're like, yeah, I've seen what you've been doing on social media. And here I am just like downplaying, because I was like, I don't have a lot of followers. I don't get a lot of likes or anything like that, but I do have a system and how I put things out. I've grown in that area, because if you look at some of my earlier stuff, you're like, girl, what were you thinking? Right? And it's just, I've enjoyed it, and putting the system together and learning how to do a lot of the back end stuff that comes with being in a digital business, being a digital entrepreneur, So then I'm like, yeah, okay. And I told them certain things on how to do it, what to do, and that's when I was like, this is what it costs for me to do that. But I'm not, at that time, I'm not thinking like this is a thing that I know how to do to charge people. I was like, oh yeah, I'll help you. I know you. This is what you do. I connected them with, my virtual assistant, and she was going to do some work for them. But then I was like, hey, you need to tighten this up because you got my VA out here just like, we can start to pay her. Because at first it was like, well, she wants to practice and getting her money mindset up, because it's different with me. But then it's like when you do with other people, like, hey, this is your thing, this is you, all you, not me, this is you. But anyway, so it was like, hey, you need to work on this is what you need to get together, and if you need me to come back into the mix, I will. And I told her the same thing. If you need me to step in, I will. So not too long ago, they reached out to me like, hey, I'm about to meet with these people. I think it would be great if you could meet with them as well. Now, these people are back in the K-12 area. Me, I've been doing this, I don't want to say song and dance around K-12, but I'll get to that. And then so they're like, I just really want to know what you do. So this is what frustrates me. But then I had to like step back a little bit. Again, the personal growth and the self-expansion part. So I had to take a step. At first I was like, why don't people read anymore? If you go read anything on my social media, if you listen to any of my videos, if you actually go to my website when it says about me, if you look up the book that I wrote, whole back cover, you don't even have to buy it to know. Again, what I said, any of my posts, my lives, anything that I've put out there, it tells you, I tell you what I do. Speaker, author, coach. Now, the only thing is I have not said like I'm a life coach because I just don't like the term. But I'm realizing more and more, it's like, well, yeah, pretty much. Especially, and it's one thing when look, y'all, if y'all know the behind the scenes people, like those testimonials, I don't even put all of them out there on my web pages, but it's like, if people actually took the time to read, you wouldn't know. So it's not like one thing. I don't say I'm a business coach or I'm a finance coach. I see why there are life coach or goal strategists or executive coaches, for high achievers because of this very issue. Anyway, so, but that's besides the thing. What I've done professionally, but you asked me like, well, yeah, so we can get a chance to really understand what you do. Fair. So I respond, hey, sounds cool. In a nutshell, I do XYZ. Very quick. And I was proud of myself because it was succinct. Short. And I felt strong and comfortable with that. It wasn't like what I would come on and say on here, or it's not my Instagram bio or things like that. But it's very, for someone who's like, what are you really trying to do? This is what it is. I am an executive. Actually, let me just read what I wrote. And I said, in a nutshell, I do executive coaching and strategic thinking for leaders to maximize their personal and professional experiences. I don't narrowly focus on the particular area that I did back then anymore, but I can if I need it. And the reason why that part in talking about the math and STEM is important is because they were going to go speak to a group of principals, right? And so that's why I put that particular part in there. I catered it to leaders because that's where they said they were going. And now what this person doesn't know is like when I've done my consulting work, and the reason why I've shifted really into this area, because I remember when I was hired by a Department of Education and a big university to be a consultant, I thought I was coming in talking about diversity, equity, inclusion, mathematics beliefs and things like that. And the entire workshop for that week turned into core values, beliefs, who you are as a person. That's how you show up. And I was like, wow, wow, this is really an area. And then the more that I'm working in this transformational work and understanding how the brain works and personal growth area, who you be at your core shows up in everything, how you make decisions. So it really doesn't matter about your professional experience. It is your personal life that dictates. All right. So the response that they said was, sounds like a sales pitch. What the bleep? Now, if you're watching this and you're like maybe new to the coaching space, or I don't even know where you are, I can maybe see how someone said that. But then again, not really, because if I said in a nutshell, this is what I do, I didn't even say the results that I produce, because I'm like, look, if you know who I am, but if you just really want to know, then, I executive coach people in their personal and professional experiences so they can maximize, get the results that they want. And for that person to say that, again, annoyed, because it's like, wait a minute, you asked me, what I used to do, and we've been having conversations, but after, again, I text my business bestie, this is why everyone needs a community, and I was like, is it me? But when I text her, I didn't give her any background. I was like, what's up with people today? I just had this conversation. I was like, you know what, hold on. This is what they asked. This is what I said, because I don't want to filter anything. Like, look, I'm just going to put it out there. You tell me, and she will tell me the truth. And she was like, yes, boom, fire, go, girl. And I was like, well, thank you. But they said it sounded like a sales pitch. And she did the emoji. And I was like, you got to meet people where they are. And I responded, okay. And they said yes. And I was like, I didn't ask the question. And I'm realizing this is all just a test for me. I can't even put this on anybody else's. Own who you are. For me, own what you know, stand in your power. And if you want to go to a particular level, and this is what I'm realizing, the moment that you say you want to go to a particular level, and I literally said, I want to have high-end elite clients at this particular amount. And I remember searching for someone, is it anybody out there that does this? And like, I know people directly in a way who they've done this, but I wanted to find someone in the kind of like the life coaching space. And I'm not talking about like Tony Robbins, because he's Tony Robbins. I wanted to find somebody that I didn't particularly know in the personal development life space that deal with a lot of different areas, who are packaging their services at this amount. Now, my coaches they do package their prices that way, but they have either their finance, their business, or their business, or they have that business spin to it. You know what I'm saying? But when it's for personal growth, life coaching, that's something different, right? It's not weight loss or weight release. It's not relationship and love. It's, can you help me fix my life? And that can feel like all over the place. And I'm getting emotional is because what I wanted to say was, if you want me to tell you the truth, and I'm going to say it here on camera, and I haven't really said this out loud, but if you want to know why a lot of K-12 schools and higher education fields are jacked up, and I'm going to stick with K-12 and higher ed as it relates to teacher preparation and leadership preparation, is because there's so much focus on understanding content But one, the people haven't had real experiences with the content they're trying to teach. They're trying to teach people how to, and I'm only saying in one particular field, they're trying to teach people how to be technologically savvy, to be engineers, to work at the space station, or to be, I don't know, the next Elon Musk or whatever in those areas, to be the next medical biochem, whatever. But if you don't have that personal experience, or you don't have that knowledge, you can only take somebody as far as you've been able to go. So if you're like, yeah, we're a STEM school, we're STEM focused, but you are afraid to take a math class, a science class, you're afraid of working with robots, coding, computers, anything technology, if you can't think critically, things like that, what do you think is going to happen? And if you're not preparing people, and especially to come back into these schools or even a higher education, if you're not exposing them to these areas, then they're going to be stuck with their limiting, outdated beliefs, the trauma that they probably had as students going through. And these are the people that are teaching the children and leading the schools. These are the people who are the college professors who can only teach from their perspective. For me, I made sure I kept bumping myself out of my comfort zone. I didn't stay internal. This is why you have to write your own badass list. It's like, I went to Duke Energy to learn about what they do. I went to Siemens Engineering to see what they do with the wind turbines. I went to the energy plants in my area to understand how they do certain things, so I can come back with that particular experience to at least have a point of entry to see what is needed. So if I answer that correctly, it's like, you want to be this level thinking. I'm not going to say what the title is, because again, I don't want anybody to identify or be able to identify who I'm talking about. But if you're focused on this, and then if I told you your thinking is so low level that you will still be there and it is not going to produce the results that you think it's going to produce, then I'm wrong. But for you to say that what I said to you sounds like a sales pitch, again, that bothered me. And I had to sit there. I was like, why does that trigger me? And it's because, again, the whole point of this is to sell. And it's like, why are you having a focus group? What is the point of meeting? They have a problem. You have a solution. In order for that to work, funds need to be exchanged. So I was kind of taken aback, like, what do you mean it sounds like a sales pitch? First of all, that wasn't the sales pitch. You were like, I'm trying to figure out what you really do. I told you in a nutshell. And the reason why I said personal professional experiences, because I know firsthand, and this person should too, of if you are not right at who you are at your core, if you have this lens of how you think, that is going to show up. You teach, lead, and serve who you be at your core. And this is coming from someone who's like really deep into content. Like, you need to know your math, you need to know your formulas. You don't need to do a calculator. You need to know your science. You need to know how to work this technology. If you're going to be that teacher or that leader, you need to have a background. Did a whole dissertation on why you need to know something about content. And now I do still stand behind that. But now that I've done this work, I know why it's hard for you to why you avoid the content, because it's from personal experiences that has led to your professional outcomes, your professional lens, or your professional experience. So I need to end this because I do have a meeting with my money mindset coach, who's also a business coach, but for this particular thing is money mindset. And again, I think that it relates to, I've said this, that the education profession, it is a low level vibe overall. Not everybody, because there are people doing some amazing work, and I go back and forth. It's like, I don't want to go back and teach another person about formulas. And I think it's fun. For me, I think it's like, if you want to learn another language, I think it's fun to learn mathematics. But the approach now that the school system is taking it may not be the best fit. But here's the other thing to that. And a lot of people want to have this conversation. The school is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. Higher education is doing exactly what it was built and designed to do. In order for it to change, you have to change an entire system or change a large enough group of people to go within the system. And if you're not willing to address the real issues, I don't want to teach not nan other formula. I said nan. Because unless you're going to be fully trained in the content of whatever it is, we can talk about English language arts, like writing, if you insert subject, because this works for any subject area. If you're not going to go and invest in learning that content, if you're not going to sharpen your skill set in that particular area because you're afraid of it or you do just enough, then how are you going to have these expectations on these children to go be in these STEM careers? And then they go to college where I was because you've given them false hope and belief, and they fail and flunk out. And then they fight me because I don't let them use a calculator when it's time for them to learn elementary mathematics. Get out of here. All right. I'll edit this back and see, but this is Real Talk with Dr. V, and I'm gonna leave this all in here. And this is why I am passionate about my book. I think I called it The Blend in the book. I don't think I did. I started talking about that after the book, but my book is Becoming Professionally Powerful Through Personal empowerment, embracing grit for greatness. It's because we focus so much on our professional lives. We got all this knowledge, all these skill sets, all these credentials, but then we're still wondering, lost, and like, well, who am I as a person? And then it's like, well, no one's really talking about building yourself up, understanding how you think. Are you even supposed to be in this career? Just because you may be good at something, it may not be a right fit for this. How are you showing up outside of this? What happens when things aren't going right on the job? And if you get demoted or you have to change schools. Do you know how many people I've seen that have to change schools and it just disrupts who they are at their core? I used to be one of those people. So it's like, if we don't focus on something else outside of that and then give us a reason to want to expand our lives, expand our skill set, sharpen our skill set, be those true lifelong learners that we tell our kids to be, then none of it makes sense anymore. And then especially with the world and how the world is changing, and don't get me wrong, I will always think that, I say a lot of times, everyone should have a STEM degree, something in science, technology, engineering, mathematics, something in those areas, because of the way it helps your mind think. People can debate me all day long if they want to. But just the type of person that can withstand in those fields is a very different person. And the way that the world is changing, you don't technically need college to get those things. There's so many different entry points to those things. Like, someone can literally learn everything they need to know about engineering from YouTube University or any other free sources out there. So it's not that you need the institution to learn, but that skill set is that skill set. And if you don't have people who are going to be open enough to, one, understand their true gifts and talents, then to get over any blocks that they have regarding anything. And we can add money in there too, because a lot of leaders make financial decisions based off their outdated money beliefs, but that's another topic, another day. I'm saying all this to say is there's a reason why I said I help leaders with their personal and professional experiences and to help them maximize the results that they're seeking for. A lot of times people don't know what they need help with, don't know the questions to ask for. That's why you bring someone in. They're why they have needs assessments. This is why they have questions, because I need to know where you are. And if I cannot help you, I'm cool with saying that's not me. All right. I'm going to end it here. I said all of this again, and I probably said this before, is one, first of all, go back and rediscover or uncover your natural born gifts. I think there's a difference between gifts and talents, a difference between learned brilliance and born brilliance. I think a lot of us know our learned brilliance, and I categorize that as like your degrees, maybe your positions, certain credentials you had to get a certain title, things you had to do to move up in a company or even in your own business, right? But then there are things that you are naturally born with that maybe someone has twisted, and not twisted in a bad way. And I'll use two examples that they twisted and you thought it was supposed to be your learned brilliance when it was actually your born brilliance, but you didn't cultivate it in that way. You kind of let the learned brilliance overtake your born brilliance. So for me, my mom always said that I had the gift of teaching. Gift of teaching is one of the gifts in the Bible. Now, when I would hear this, I automatically thought, oh, she meant that I'm supposed to go and be a teacher. And then so I ended up being a teacher, and then I went on to be a college professor. So that's still like teaching. Not really realizing that it could have meant when the boom of like the life coaching and the, all of that came out around the time I was kind of like, what am I supposed to do in my life? Not knowing that that was a form of teaching people from my personal experiences and then my gift of understanding processes. You know what? Let me back up. The same person who said that, they wanted my help, they want to know what I do, and said that was a sales pitch. They were the same person when I shared with them way back in the early 2000s. They asked me what made me so good. And I was like, I learned I can process information and see frameworks for people. And they told me that that was not a true skill set. Now I have people coming to me wanting me to help them systemize their lives, or when they ask me a how-to, I can immediately see a system, a strategy, and a framework to get them the results that they desire. Hence, brilliant solutionist. Not saying I know it all, but me and Jesus, we be connected. Find that interesting. But anyway, I said all that. So that was one thing. Like maybe, it wasn't so much that I need to be a teacher, but maybe it was teaching in a different way. Another example is, let's say, I don't know if you've heard this a lot. I've heard this a lot. People will say if someone likes to argue, or, they're very direct or things like that, oh, you're meant to be a lawyer. And then that's all that person hears. And then they go be a lawyer. And there's nothing like wrong with that. But what if the avenue, maybe it was to be a CEO, or maybe it was to be a public speaker or something like that. I don't know. But I want to challenge you to take some sort of personality test, spiritual gift test, if that's your jam. Something to where it looks at you beyond your positions, titles, and degrees. Then start going back and looking over some examples in your life and pinpointing, like, what if people naturally come to you? And that's what I struggle with. Like, what do people naturally come to me for? Because it wasn't like a weight loss. It wasn't a weight release. It wasn't money or anything like that. Everything people have literally asked me once I've opened up and separated myself from only knowing STEM education or mathematics and things like that was, how do you, or how to insert ... And I know that sounds broad and generic, but that's what people, how do you do X, Y, and Z? How do you do that thing? Or they'll pick something that I've done. How did you write a book? And I'm not a publisher, but if someone's like, I've never written one, I can say, well, this is how you can go through the system like that. So take some kind of personality test, sit with yourself, look at some examples from your past, and then see kind of how it lines up with your career or not. And then I'm not going to tell you to make any rash decisions, but understand like your brilliance is bigger than just your career, is bigger than what people have said it to be. And then just know that there are certain parts of you that you haven't even tapped into yet. I love when I learned about the 12 areas of life. And to take the time to go through and see how I can expand in those areas, it's just been mind blowing for me. So when people want to question my skill set, I'm seeing it as, oh, maybe I wasn't as certain with this person. Maybe they picked up on that. I'm going to say that. I'm not going to even blame the other people. That just means just show up, because, we don't need to be bleeding in the water. We don't need the sharks to come through. Sharks smell blood. So wherever that hint of uncertainty was, knock it out. And then a lot of times it's not even, I don't think it may not be like you're uncertain, but you didn't say what needed to be said, if that makes sense. All right, I'm going to leave it there because Grandma is calling me again. I don't want to pause this to pick up. I'm going to end it here. If you took away anything I said from this real talk, please let me know in the comments below. I may split this up in 2 parts, but then I was like, maybe not, because I've seen people, they have podcasts on for 3 hours and people be watching. So you can pause, come back later, remember where you stopped. All right. Thank you so much for listening and learning with me. I got to go to my other meeting. I may do some more real talks, because this is one, to get content out, and 2, to hear myself and process, and then be an example for you if you need to process. All right, remember to be well, be empowered, be bold, and be brilliant. Until next time, bye.